Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Nick Petro at the National Weather Service in Raleigh with your Wednesday morning 11:30 update for Hurricane Michael and its impacts on central North Carolina. And just jumping right into the first slide here, you can see that we've expanded the tropical storm warning. Well, actually, we've upgraded the tropical storm watch to a tropical storm warning for a large portion of central North Carolina, and areas to our south and east have also upgraded to a warning. We've also expanded the warning a little bit further north, one tier of counties north. So now that a tropical storm warning extends up to Stanley County and Montgomery County, over east toward Johnston County, and up toward Edgecombe County. So anyway, we'll come back to to this slide set here in a minute. But I just wanted to show you the latest in where Michael is at. You can see it's pretty close to making landfall there, just south of Panama City. And as I zoom out, I wanted to point out the rain that we're getting here in the Carolinas is not attached to Michael, and we've been pointing this out here for the last couple of days on our webinars that that's a totally different system. So, but we've also noticed that these are not these rainfall amounts we're getting here in the east of Charlotte aren't particularly light either. We're getting some rainfall amounts greater than a ½ inch in the last couple hours, particularly in those locations there east of Charlotte that are seeing those yellows and dark greens on the radar. So this rain will that you see here will continue to move in from off the water. You can see kind of this whole area here. There's plenty of showers still yet to move on shore, and all of this will gradually turn to the north and overspread central North Carolina as the day progresses. So that's going to be the case for the rest of today, looking at some of this rain moving in, and then there'll be a little bit of a break here as you see this break between Hurricane Michael's rain and the rain that's moving across our area now. So we'll get into that break later tonight. But by Thursday morning, we'll see these outer rain bands begin to move into North Carolina. I know it's kind of difficult to imagine that how can it cover that much ground in literally 24 hours. But keep in mind as it continues, this is moving pretty quick. I mean, you can see just in the last hour how much the eye has moved. So that's what this loop covers. So this one is definitely moving faster than, say, obviously than Florence. Florence was a slow mover. This is a much faster moving system. So anyway, let me go ahead and get back to the back to the slides here. And the statistics here, Michael is still a Category 4 hurricane and very powerful, I'm sure very destructive. In terms of how it's going to impact central North Carolina, you can see we've moved these arrows slightly here. Yesterday we had the arrows on limited, and for wind and power outages, we've moved them now to elevated. You could see that we are expecting some gusty winds, and no changes with the flash flooding and river flooding potential. We do think there's a pretty moderate or elevated chance, if you will, of those occurring as well. So that's the biggest change, is we've increased the wind a bit and higher confidence that there'll be some down trees and subsequent power outages. Now this slide kind of puts it all in a table. First thing with wind. We're expecting 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained winds. So this isn't going to be blowing strong and continuously. But where we really think we're going to get into a little bit of problems is with these isolated wind gusts that occur. It's not going to be blowing 40 to 50 miles per hour all morning and all afternoon. So let me just get that kind of cleared up. It's not like this is going to be incredibly windy, but with some of the stronger embedded cells within the bands, we could get some gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour. So that's why we have scattered down trees instead of something like widespread. So so keep that in mind. This is, there'll be times tomorrow where you'll be like, well, this wind isn't even all that bad. But then, maybe a few minutes later, one of these stronger cells moves over and gives you a 35, 40, maybe 45 mile per hour wind gusts. Okay, so the key thing there is that there's a lot of trees that have been weakened during Florence that maybe are leaning over. Those types of trees are going to fall The ones that are halfway leaning anyway, probably going to fall all the way tomorrow with a 35, even 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So the strongest winds are expected from the triangle south and east, although really all of central North Carolina is at risk of seeing these stronger gusts with any of the isolated cells. The timing of that will be basically daytime Thursday and then into Thursday night as it moves east. Okay, so that's the wind situation. The flash flooding, we are expecting periods of heavy downpours with that band, and that, of course, I mean, imagine a good thunderstorm. Imagine a slow-moving summertime thunderstorm, that produces localized poor drainage and urban and low spot flooding. That's probably what you're going to see with this. Any place that would flood during a slow-moving, good, heavy thunderstorm will probably experience flooding, poor drainage and brief flooding, flash-type flooding with this. And that's really anywhere in central North Carolina, perhaps as early as with, later on with these early bands. Well, actually, with this early system, they're not bands. I shouldn't call it bands because it's not part of Michael. But more so tomorrow, during the day tomorrow and Thursday night. All right. Now, all that rain's got to go somewhere. Obviously, it flows into the river system, so we're keeping a close eye. We are still expecting, obviously, some river flooding, minor to even moderate in some places. That takes a little while to develop, so that'll be more like Friday into Saturday. Friday, we're going to have nice weather. I mean, plenty of sunshine, hardly a cloud in the sky, but that's but there will be some river flooding. That's when the rivers would be expected to crest. So Friday into Saturday. Now, also, let me remind folks that a couple isolated tornadoes can't be ruled out, and of course, scattered power outages are expected, and that'll be mainly Thursday night. If just depending on how bad it is, those outages in some places could linger into the weekend. So that's what we're expecting impact-wise. All right, so suffice it to say, pretty high probabilities that tropical storm force winds are expected, and we kind of already alluded to this during the daytime tomorrow, so I'm not going to spend much time on that slide. Here's our latest storm total rainfall for the entire state, really, when you think about this from the statewide perspective, really, the entire state could see, anywhere across the state could see localized poor drainage and flash flooding, but the heaviest rain amounts are basically expected east of Interstate 77 and mainly west and west of I-95 is where we think those 4, 5, and maybe isolated 6-inch rain amounts are expected. So, we call that the Piedmont, the Coastal Plain, and the Sandhills regions where we think the greatest risk of flooding will occur. So initially it'll be flash flooding, and then subsequently that water flows into the main stem river system, and there will be some river flooding. We'll get to that here in just a minute. And when is this expected again? Could be as early as tonight on the late end of today's rain, but more likely during the day tomorrow and Thursday night. So and then that river flooding, may take until Friday, maybe even Saturday before some rivers crest. So again, the rain will be done by Friday. It'll be plenty of sunshine on Friday, but the rivers may still be coming up. All right, so what about rain timing for today? Today's rain, again, is not associated with Michael. It should scatter out more as we head towards later in the day, and then you'll notice at 11 o'clock tonight down the part of the image here in the lower right, look at how the Michael rain bands, which you see down there in upstate South Carolina and Georgia, those are the outer bands with Michael. Okay, so that's for today. Now for wind and rain timing for Thursday morning and afternoon. And by the way, this is the slide that I sent out by itself via our email list earlier today. So you should already have had a chance to look at this particular slide and kind of get a sense for the timing. But it's within those bands is where we think the heaviest downpours will occur, coupled with the gustier winds. And of course, that's where we think, of course, there could be, at least timing-wise, could be some localized flash flooding. So, will Thursday morning commute be okay? Yeah, but you might be able to get where you're going Thursday morning, but once you get where you're going, then things are going to be going downhill very, very rapidly. So, I think come, tomorrow afternoon, from about this time through tomorrow afternoon is when we're going to get into the worst of the weather, where, again, flash flooding will be a possibility. Some of the stronger cells embedded within these bands, where you see, the higher radar reflectivities, there could be gustier winds, and it won't be blowing 30 to 50 the whole time. Okay, so let me point that out. It's 15, 20, 25 miles per hour sustained is what's expected. But any of these stronger cells could result in a wind gust of 30 to 50 miles per hour. So it's not going to be blowing 30 to 50 all day long tomorrow. But any of those cells could produce a gust of 30 to 50, which, given the weakened trees from Florence, could produce some downed trees and power outages. So I'm probably more concerned, honestly, with flooding than I am wind. I think the localized flooding might be a bigger problem than wind. But certainly, a gust of 40, maybe even 50 miles an hour is nothing to disregard, and there could be some downed trees. All right, so by 5 p.m. Friday, that band should be shifting, the solid band should be lifting by to the north and east of the Triangle region eventually. And then as we get into rain and wind timing for Thursday evening, certainly during the evening hours and then into Friday night, the whole thing will be shifting east, moving across eastern North Carolina and the Outer Banks Thursday night into early Friday morning. So during the overnight hours is when we're going to see improving weather. And for central North Carolina, by the time you wake up Friday morning, this whole thing will be over. Aside from the river flooding, the rivers may still be coming up, but in terms of wind and rain, that should be settling down overnight. And then during the daytime Friday, it's just going to be beautiful, sunny weather on Friday. Good conditions in the evening, and cooler with high temps in the lower 70s. So beautiful weather Friday into Saturday. Again, the rivers may still be coming up, but that'll be very localized right along the riverbanks. Aside from that, Friday's looking pretty good. All right. So here I'm going to step away from the microphone at this point in time, and I'm going to let our river specialist here take over the briefing. That's Kathleen. Many of you may have talked to Kathleen over the phone. Let me just slide out of the way so she can take over and give you the updates on the river system. Take it away. There you go.
There you go. All right, so bear with me, folks. We got quite a bit to go through just because there are a lot of rivers across to central North Carolina. So this here gives you a quick overview of what the current stages are across the area, which is the image on the left, and then what the forecasts are, which is the image on the right. So the orange circles are minor flood stage, the red ones are moderate flood stage, and the purple circles are major flood stage. So those are the forecasts that we're expecting at those given areas. And so I'm just going to step through each of those hydrographs to kind of show you graphically what we're expecting. So this is the Haw River at Haw River. They're forecasting a crest at 26.3 feet. That is moderate flood stage. And that's expected sometime late Thursday night, Friday morning. Haw River at Bynum, which is downstream, that's Chatham County, expecting major flood stage, 17.9 feet, and that is Friday morning as well. And then going over to the Neuse River, we have moderate flooding forecasts along the Neuse. That's 14.5 feet or so. I do want to, at this point, just preface this with saying that the river flooding is going to depend a lot on where the axis of heavier rainfall goes. So with that being said, if we get the heavier rain, the 4 to 6 inch amounts falling above, say, Falls Lake or Jordan Lake, those reservoirs are going to catch a lot of the precipitation, and that may decrease the flooding severity, at least early on, downstream in the Neuse and the Cape Fear. So just keep that in mind, that these are based on what our current precipitation forecasts are, but if the track shifts west or east, that could change things. So you'll want to keep an eye on this over the next day, see how things change. So anyway, the Neuse River at Clayton is forecast to go into moderate flood. At Smithfield, just below major, but still in moderate flood at 19.7 feet. And then the Neuse River at Goldsboro, at least moderate flood stage. That one takes a bit longer because the water along the Neuse takes a couple days to get from Smithfield to Goldsboro. So we don't have an official crest forecast there yet because that's beyond the forecast window, but it is expected to at least get into moderate flood. Moving over to the Cape Fear at Lillington, so this is below Jordan Lake, forecast to go into moderate flooding at 19.9 feet. Cape Fear at Fayetteville, farther downstream, is expected to be just below moderate in the high minor region about 47.3 feet. The Tar River at Lewisburg, this is another one. There isn't really a reservoir upstream to catch any of this rain, and they're kind of in the, I don't want to say the bullseye, but the prime location where we're expecting the highest amounts of rainfall in the headwaters of this basin here. So, if I had to pick a site that I was probably most confident in the forecast, it would probably be the Tar River here at Lewisburg. So the fact that they're forecasting major flood stage 23.8 feet, I think that's probably a pretty good estimate at this point. So that's one of the higher ones, one of the two that we have forecast going into major at this time. Farther downstream in Rocky Mount, forecast to go into moderate flood. And that's not expected to happen till early in the morning on Saturday, or maybe towards Saturday afternoon. At Tarboro, again, similar to Goldsboro, because of the crest is kind of outside that forecast period. It's not showing up on here what the crest is, but it's at least going to get to moderate. It's probably going to crest in moderate, just the crest height is a little bit uncertain at this time. And then the Rocky River near Norwood, that's out just east of Charlotte, so their forecast is to get to 32.7 feet, which is in the moderate range. And they're going to probably see a little bit of a response earlier on than most other places because of the rain that's falling there today and this afternoon. So keep that in mind, that they may start to respond a little bit earlier because of the rain that's happening today. Fishing Creek near Enfield, that's up near the Tar Basin, so in the northeast there, and their forecast crest is moderate at 18.2. Deep River at Moncure, so going back to Chatham County, 12.6 feet, which is minor flood stage, and that's early Friday morning, late Thursday night. Little River at Manchester, that's the Cape Fear again, minor flood stage forecast. So if you're a table person, here's the table format. Tried to put together here an estimate of the time it's supposed to reach flood stage, how high it's supposed to get, what time it's supposed to crest, and when, if we know that it may fall below flood stage. So I'm just going to leave this one up for a little bit for you to look at real quick. On the far right, the stages of flood stage, moderate flood stage, and major flood stage are listed there, so that you can view that. Now, these are just the forecast points. So we have a lot of other gauges across the area in central North Carolina, where you can view these hydrographs if you go to weather.gov/raw/rivers. That's the AHAPS page, and you can view any of the hydrographs that are currently reporting on there. But the ones that are listed here are the only ones that are forecast points. So you're not going to get a forecast for places that are not listed on this sheet here. So keep that in mind, but that's open for everybody to view online, and whoever wants to view it, and it's got all of the past and current river stages. And this is just a summary of what we're forecasting. Currently, we don't have any river flood warnings in effect, and no rivers are in flood at this time. And I'm going to pass it back to Nick and let him finish up.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate that overview of the rivers. So the one thing is you kind of probably already noticed based on the slides and timing here is that Michael's going to be much faster than Florence. So it's not like we have to worry about this thing sitting around and dumping rain on us for days at a time. So any kind of impact should be less widespread. Still, not minimal, but less widespread than we expected with Florence. So our confidence is increasing. We are expecting periods of heavy downpours tonight, mainly, and especially Thursday during the daytime. As I pointed out on that slide earlier with the simulated reflectivity, Thursday through Thursday night as Michael moves across central North Carolina. And again, I kind of use this analogy, but think of a slow-moving heavy downpour in the summertime. Think of those places that would normally flood during that scenario, and they're probably going to flood tomorrow. So, and then of course, the river flooding that Kathleen just went over is expected, and that could linger, through the weekend. Usually they crest faster upstream and take longer downstream as the water works its way down. So, and then of course, again, it's not going to be blowing like crazy all day. But those heavier embedded cells will produce gusts, 35, 45. It can roll out of 50-mile-an-hour gusts. And those gusts will produce scattered down trees, especially ones that were weakened during Florence, and that'll produce scattered power outages as well. And finally, we can never rule out with tropical systems a couple isolated tornadoes. I bet you there's going to be a few around tomorrow, because this is a very powerful hurricane that's moving onshore. There's a lot of energy with this. I bet you there'll be a few tornadoes, but we can never say at this point in time where they're going to happen. It could be anywhere across central North Carolina. So anyway, but it looks like maybe the best chances, the locations with the best chances are going to be mainly south and east of the triangle. All right, so for recovery, that bold area at the bottom's for recovery. Aside from lingering river flooding, the weather will improve Friday morning with sunshine returning by midday Friday. Enjoy that weather over the weekend. It's going to be nice. So good for cleanup if you got any branches to pick up or worse, So we're gonna have good recovery weather Friday into Saturday. All right, so that wraps up this briefing. We'll do another webinar. Right now, our next webinar is scheduled tomorrow morning at the same time. If things continue to go downhill or look like it's going to be worse than anything we presented here, I may do a quick short order one, another one in later this afternoon. But right now we don't have any scheduled. If we add any, we'll definitely email you and let you know. Otherwise, we'll be updating these slides throughout the day today. So you'll check your email and follow your email today frequently to see those updates. And yes. Oh, Kathleen has one more thing she wanted to pass along.
So one thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to pass along, because I think it's important to remember, is that there's a lot of, as far as the rivers go, there's a lot of debris in the rivers. There were a lot of trees that were brought down. Some of the channels were eroded a little bit. And I'm not sure, how much of that has been able to be cleaned up, given that this is occurring so much sooner after Florence than would be ideal. And so just be mindful that, even though the river flooding is maybe not supposed to be as extensive or as bad as during Florence, there may be a lot of things in the river, trees, branches, what have you, that could contribute to flooding or, could make just the situation a little bit dangerous. So just be mindful of that, especially, if you have concerns along those river systems.
Kathleen, we got a question here from Ryan asking, do we have any predictions for the Eno River? I know there were some issues with the Eno last time, right?
Yeah.
Or Florence,
we don't have any forecast points along the Eno, and so as far as official forecasts go, I can't really provide you with anything there. However, given the rainfall that's expected, and given that there aren't really any reservoirs to tamper that rain that's going to fall upstream, I would say there's probably a pretty good possibility that the Eno and other smaller rivers and tributaries across the area, especially in that between I-77 and I-95 that Nick highlighted, are probably going to flood, or at least have some issues, especially in the lower lying river crossings. So yeah, I would say if you normally have areas where when the water gets high, it closes roads and stuff, you're probably going to be seeing that happening this time around.